Imagine a world where dragons don't just soar above us, they walk among us, flaunting their legendary scale armor like it's the latest fashion trend. In this chaotic realm, we've got our young protagonist who's been sent on what sounds like a simple mission: check out an alchemist's shop that's been gathering dust for a century. Easy enough, right? Of course, his master conveniently forgot to mention a few little details, like the fact that this dusty old store might be hiding dangers that are far from ordinary. As our guy ventures through narrow, crumbling cliffs, his focus slips just once. One tiny oversight, and bam, he's plummeting off the edge in classic why me fashion. With everything going dark, he catches a glimpse of a colossal, dragon-like figure looming over him, scales shimmering like a mythical beast straight out of a nightmare. His first thought, great, now I'm Dragon Chow? But then, as he opens his eyes, he finds himself wondering, did he really survive? Or is he about to become the dragon's next spicy snack? As he slowly blinks back to consciousness, a voice mysterious, low, and definitely not human o's around him, telling him he's alive. Barely, his shoulders shot, his legs are a mess. But hey, he's still kicking, sort of. But then, looming over him is this strange figure, a half-human, half-dragon hybrid, like something straight out of a mad alchemist's notebook. With scales glistening and eyes that could stare right through your soul, she fixes him with a serious gaze and asks, "Are you a thief looking for treasure? Because if so, we're done here, permanently." And panicked, our guy practically trips over his words, stammering, "Wait, I'm not here for treasure, I swear. Just looking for some healing flowers, minerals, for alchemy." Stuff, yeah, not his best lie, but he's just trying to stay alive. And the dragon woman, dragon homunculus, apparently narrows her eyes but relents, giving him a chance to catch his breath. She tells him he can stay until he's healed up. But there's one condition, and then she leans in close, her dragon scales shimmering as she smiles slyly and drops the bomb in exchange for her help. She wants him to be her husband. Not a bad deal if I do say so myself.
Nice.
Our boy is still reeling from the whole become my husband bombshell, and he's got one word looping through his head. What the heck? But fast forward, and it seems like he must have mumbled out a shaky yes, because here he is, sitting at a table, and she's prepared enough food to feed a small army just for him. The sheer amount of it leaves him wide-eyed, and he barely whispers, I don't think I can eat all this." But before he knows it, she's swooping in, misinterpreting his reluctance as a sign he's too hurt to eat alone. So now, she's right in his face, picking up a morsel and leaning in to feed him herself. Nervously, he takes a bite, and as he chews, he's greeted with a distinct crunch, followed by a wave of sourness. It's not good. It's really not good. But he can't exactly tell her that. Not with those intense dragon eyes watching his every move. Plastering on a shaky smile, he manages to say, "It's delicious." But his poker face must need some work, because she frowns and sighs, sensing the truth. "It's really no good, is it?" she admits, looking down, defeated. Turns out, she tried to whip this up based on some ancient cookbook and surprise, but there's a glint of determination in her eye as she tells him, it's a wife's duty to know what her husband likes. At least, that's what the books say, and our poor guy's heart skips a beat. Wife? Husband? He's barely processed this whole situation, and now she's leaning in, ready to dive into wifely duties with enough dedication to make any man question his luck or his sanity. But our guy thinks he's dodged a bullet when he manages to choke down her cooking with a forced smile. But oh, she's onto him. She beams, telling him how sweet he is for being so considerate. But because he fibbed about how delicious it was, he now has to prove it by finishing every last bite. "Open wide, honey," she says, practically force-feeding him another mouthful. Cut to him later in his room, looking like he's about to explode from all that food. While she's right there in front of him, looking pleased and very cuddly. Apparently, she's ready for the next couple activity because according to her book, couples sleep together, and tonight they're following tradition. She climbs into bed beside him, eyes full of curiosity, and asks why his face is so red. "It's just lying down together, isn't it?" she says, completely innocent, while he's practically sweating bullets. Trying to keep it cool, he decides to play it safe, nervously asking, "So, you like books?" She lights up at this, explaining how much books mean to her. Her mother collected them, so they've always been precious. But then, a shadow crosses her face as she reveals the things the books didn't tell her: her mother's illness, the relentless coughing, the weight loss, and finally her passing. Suddenly our guy realizes there's a lot more to this dragon homunculus than meets the eye. She may look like a fierce creature who could roast him alive, but beneath the scales and fiery looks, she's also carrying a lot of heartache. As they lie together, she opens up, sharing her past with a raw honesty he didn't expect. She's reluctant to lose anything else she cares about. She's lost too much already. Since her mother passed, she's been alone, and that solitude has been as heavy as her scales. She confesses, "I feel very lonely when I sleep." Hearing this, he can't help but ask, "So, why did you want me to be your husband?" With a small smile, she explains that, according to her beloved books, love and affection are essential parts of life. She'd felt affection from her mother, but she wanted to experience the rest with someone, and he seemed like a kind choice. And she was terrified he'd run off screaming when he saw her. He hesitates, torn between duty and something else. I feel bad that you're so lonely," he mumbles. "But this is just, work for me. I can't get emotionally attached." To his surprise, she corrects him with a soft chuckle, telling him he doesn't need to be so polite when he speaks to her. And with that, their conversation ends. Over the next month, their lives settle into a steady rhythm, and he finds himself spending more time with her than he'd ever expected. They share quiet days, and in his own way, he begins to bring her a happiness she's never felt before. He's still unsure what it means to be part of a couple, but he's slowly learning to show her affection, like family or maybe something a little more. And every day he feels his heart thaw just a bit more, as the line between duty and feeling begins to blur in ways he never saw coming. After weeks of resting, he's back on his feet, ready to finish his original mission, and slipping around the house when she isn't watching, he investigates each room and begins to notice the signs of past struggles everywhere: scorch marks on walls, shattered furniture, claw marks etched deep into stone. These scars on the house seem to match the ones on her own body, telling a silent story of battles he can only imagine. Finally, he reaches a locked door, the last unexplored room. Curiosity tingling, he carefully picks the lock and slips inside, only to find nothing. At first, it seems the room is empty, but as he searches, he finds a single piece of paper on the floor. It's a diary, and when he starts reading, something unsettling becomes clear. Just then, a familiar voice cuts through the silence like a dagger. Before he can react, she's there, and bam, he's kicked straight into the wall. Her eyes blaze as she glares at him, hurt and betrayal written all over her face. She accuses him of lying, of sneaking around, and of stealing something valuable from her. Carefully, she tells him that she trusted him, her husband, and now he's broken that trust. But he shakes his head, grimacing as he tries to explain. "No, you're making a mistake. This diary, this is proof of what was taken from you," he shouts, holding up the small, worn notebook. He goes on, revealing that those who came before left behind only the remnants of their experiment and this seemingly worthless diary. But to him, it's clear this diary is anything but worthless. He stares at her, realizing she's more than just the powerful creature guarding an empty home. She's a being who's lost everything yet holds on to every memory like it's her last treasure. And at this moment, he knows that the true value in this house isn't some hidden research or mythical treasure. It's her. Wantingshin, taking a deep breath, he tells her, homunculi aren't usually given names. They're seen as disposable, often assigned code names to prevent anyone from getting too attached. And his voice softens as he continues, "But you were different. Your mother didn't just see you as an experiment or a tool. She gave you a name and raised you as her daughter. She didn't leave behind any treasure or groundbreaking research. The most precious thing she created was you." Hearing this, she falters, as if processing a truth she's never dared to believe. She asks quietly, "Then, what exactly have I been protecting all this time?" The protagonist nods, explaining that nearly a century ago, radical alchemists stripped this place of all its knowledge, leaving it as a hollow shell. The very alchemists who should have valued life and creation tore apart her world and left her broken and alone. "I understand why you can't forgive them," he says gently. "Even if they apologized, it wouldn't erase the hurt. But you don't have to keep holding on to their sins." He then assures her, "If I report the true state of this place, how empty and barren it's become, no one will have a reason to return. No one will disturb your peace again." Pausing for a moment, he thanks her for everything, for her warmth and for the strange but precious companionship they've shared. and as he turns to leave, he looks back with a bittersweet smile. I'm sorry for betraying your trust. I know I've left a scar on your heart, but I hope that, in time, you'll remember me as more than just a bitter memory. With that, he begins to walk away, his heart heavy but filled with a strange sense of fulfillment, knowing he may have finally given her the closure she deserves. She suddenly calls out to him, her voice unexpectedly tender. You won't be a bitter memory, you know, she says softly. The memories I have of you and of my mother, please. Remember me, even if we can't stay together. But then, in a bold move, he steps forward and grabs her arm, his eyes fierce. Come with me, he says, his voice filled with determination. She pulls her arm away, shaking her head gently, reminding him, our deal was until you recovered. We were only a temporary couple. You don't need to worry about me. But he's undeterred. If we were only a temporary couple, then you know me well enough to understand this. I want you to be more than just a memory. So, will you be my wife for a moment? Silence hangs heavy in the air. After, she hesitates. Then finally says, I can't. His heart sinks, but before he can respond, she stretches out her hand and smiles, adding, an equivalent exchange isn't enough for me. I don't want to just hear about your life. I want to see it with you. He can't help but chuckle, his heart feeling a bit lighter. Is it true what they say about dragons and their greed? With a smirk, she counters, then promise me something. Let's face the world together, no matter where it takes us.
They will clap. They will clap.